So this meeting is really intended to frame new questions based on the preliminary pilot observations that we have so far. And here we have a very interdisciplinary group that is looking at these observations from different perspectives. And as a group together, our goal is to frame the right questions and to chart the path in front of us. Because this project has just started, and we hope that in the years to come, this would establish itself as a new discipline and attract the interest of a broad group of scientists that would participate and develop this into its own field. I'm Chandan Sen. I'm a professor of surgery at the Indiana University School of Medicine. I direct the Indiana Center for Regenerative Medicine and Engineering. Much of biology that we know today and medicine is learned from organisms that have already died. And in many cases, the assumptions are that death itself is not a significant variable. But this project seems to point in a direction otherwise. And it seems like death itself can trigger a series of molecular processes. And therefore, this is a time when we should consider to look more closely at death as a biological variable.
I think the whole idea of different organs or cells survive differently after death is already transformative. It's so important to have different perspective, whether you're a geneticist, biologist, on a topic on what can be revived after death, since this is such a new area of thinking.
That what we thought about death is not correct, and that death is just the beginning of something fascinating. And finally, science has caught up, and we're beginning to explore that.
So the old line is, anytime you put 3 philosophers in a room, you get at least 5 opinions.
Thank you, Dr. Sen, and good morning, everybody. I have to say right away, this is the most interesting meeting I have ever been to. So
the data already pre-existed, but we asked a question to see whether after death, all of the body falls apart. We found a survival response after organismal death, and that's where we paused and started asking questions. The data and the database existed. The questions are new. See, we are interested in the field of regenerative medicine and in tissue repair. So during the course of our lifetime, we encounter injuries and we repair ourselves, and the goal is to repair in a way that restores original function of the tissue. The aspirational goal is to seek what we call regenerative repair. Now, as you seek that, what we know now is that if you injured in utero, you would achieve regenerative repair. Now, that's very interesting that in our lifespan, there is a time frame where you are able to achieve regenerative repair. It is just that you are not able to reproduce that after you're born.
right after a forest fire, you see this scorched earth kind of view, right? You think everything is gone. But actually there are roots under there that haven't been killed, and those sprouts are roots. And so there's still energy stored in those roots, even though you can't see them. There's this notion that Nassim Taleb put forward of anti-fragility, right? So there are things that happen, and there's a break point like a forest fire, and fragile systems are destroyed. We have resilient systems, then we have anti-fragile systems that somehow the experience of the stressor and something about the system allows them to come back stronger.
You can think about as a model system for the study of survival of death. Here, these are planaria. These are free-living flatworms. They are similar to our direct ancestor. They have a true brain, centralized nervous system. But they have some amazing properties. One property is that you can cut them into pieces. The record is something like 275. and every piece will regrow exactly what's needed to be a perfect little worm. And so this immediately raises all sorts of philosophical issues about the fact that which one of these is actually the original, right? And so now we see right away that this idea of persistence of an individual through time is actually quite tricky. Philosophically, it's quite tricky to say what it was that persisted or didn't persist.
Now, what is absolutely fascinating in the 21st century, of course, is that we've understood that after we die and we become a corpse and a cadaver and you're being wheeled out of the intensive care unit to go to the mortuary, that the cells in your brain do not die immediately. In fact, they take hours of time before they die. So that provides us with an opportunity where you are dead, you're really dead, but actually you have the potential to be brought back to life again. So it challenges all our concepts. Death is reversible. What determines whether you stay dead is actually the inability of medicine to fix the underlying condition that caused you to die. But on the other hand, if a young person dies, who's otherwise healthy, somebody in the military, let's say, somebody who's an athlete, who suddenly dies, technically we should be able to bring them back to life again. And that is a game changer.
If you train them with a particular kind of memory, then you amputate their head, including their brain. The tail sits there for a week doing absolutely nothing, but then it regrows a new brain. And when the new brain is mature, the animal begins to behave again, showing evidence of the original memory. Now, what this means is two things. One is that the memory was in some way distributed throughout the body. It was clearly not simply localized to the brain. But perhaps even more interestingly, it means that those memories can be imprinted onto the new brain so that it may drive behavior during the regenerative process. So what we're looking at here is a model for the movement of memories through tissues.
Because again, a common conception of things is that the organism dies, and that approach to death seems to me, from what I'm understanding from your presentations, does not fare well with the other idea that in fact at the moment of death there are lots of parts of the body that try to survive, they want keeping living, right? So I think if we undermine this conception that the organism is one and that death is a kind of one-off phenomenon when the organism dies, we open the way, we facilitate this thinking of modern medicine about how that is not a one-off affair, it's not black and white, there are parts of the body that keep living. We should not even talk about death in such a final kind of way. And I think we should do the same now in relation to medicine. So the medicine of today is requiring us a new conceptual framework, which we don't have because we still operate on the conceptual framework that, there is one organism and then one moment it dies and there is a soul that holds it together and all that. We just need new philosophy that matches the development of medicine.
The death is a tremendous stress and causes huge changes. But since many cells survive after death, then the understanding of the mechanisms that are preserving life after death, I think that is going to be very important information for us to design new treatments for pre-death in order to prevent the catastrophe that comes with death.